What's up, guys? Long time no see. Welcome to, I don't even know what episode this is. This is episode 84 of not Crave the Book. This is Cherish the Book, because in today's episode, we are covering Cherish front to back, beginning to end, the entire story. So obviously, if you haven't read Cherish, you're going to want to skip this episode. However, before you turn the episode off, we have an announcement for everybody, and then you can turn it off, because we do not want to ruin Cherish for you, especially since everybody has been waiting so long for this to come out. We've got some good news and we've got some bad news, but the bad news is due to good news. So the first bit of good news is that we're going to do a giveaway. Since this is our Cherish episode, you know, we try to do a fun giveaway when we do an episode that is focused around a release. So in the Crave the Book Podcast Tea Room Facebook group, make sure you're a member. You just search Crave the Book Podcast Tea Room. We want you to post your favorite memory, quote, obscure reference from the podcast somewhere into the group wall. And Amber and I will be selecting our favorite out of all of those, and you will win one of our faction hoodies. I will go ahead for those of you watching on YouTube, I'll put those up on the screen. But for those who are listening, basically we've got one hoodie for each court. The sleeve says Team Katmere. The front has a Katmere Academy logo. Gargoyle is purple. Not the print is. The hoodies are black, but the print for Gargoyle is purple. Dragon is bright, like neon green. Witches is a kind of pinky magenta. Wolf is blue. And Vampire is red. And then the back of the hoodies, Werewolf has a wolf head, Dragon has dragon wings, Gargoyle has gargoyle wings, Witch's Court has a spell book, and Vampire has big vampire teeth. So if you would like to try your chance at winning...
And you can't buy these.
No.
You can't buy these.
Yeah, we get requests all the time. We are currently trying to get a deal with Entangled Teen to sell these in a shop that I am developing. However, we have not been able to get a response from them for licensing, unfortunately. Feel free to bug them. Say, hey, you know, look at your emails from Starla and yada, yada. But we are going to attempt to get them in the shop, but it's been over a year now. I've been trying to get this to happen, and unfortunately, they haven't been responding. So this is the only way you can get one. Post in the group. Post your favorite story, quote, reference, yada, yada. And what do you say, Amber? Maybe in a week?
Yeah.
We'll choose a winner?
So the 5th of July, 6th of July, 6th of July.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So, and those sizes, I believe, go up to 5X. So any size that you guys want. So that is the first bit of good news for everybody. Mm-hmm. Amber, I will let you do the bad news, and then you can explain why it's kind of good news.
So the bad news, guys, is unfortunately this will be our last episode.
No.
It's actually been a long run. Like, if we look back, we've been doing this for over a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
We are rounding up on the second year.
Yeah. 84 episodes is crazy. We never ever expected it to get this big. We started off just because we loved the series and just wanted to talk about it with somebody. So we just recorded it each other and kind of posted it out to the internet. Genuinely, we're like, nobody's listening to us. It was only once we saw the statistics of showing the map of the world and the viewing and the listens and the downloads, it just went absolutely crazy. So we can't thank you enough for being on this journey with us. But unfortunately, both of us have experienced a hell of a lot of burnout And that's probably the reason why it's taken 3 weeks for us to get this particular episode out. Both of us have quite high-powered jobs. We run our own businesses, and Starla launched her Handmade Alpha Academy last week. So that was the reason why she just didn't have time last week to do it. But the other reason why we've not been able to do it is because I have been throwing up. I have been peeing all the time. I have been seeing lots of doctors because I am having a baby.
Yay! And guys, ever since I've known Amber, Amber has been trying to conceive. And I have known you now for, I mean, how long have you been trying to conceive?
We've been trying to conceive for 6 years.
Yeah. So this is super exciting. It's definitely not an oopsie baby.
No, we gave up. We got told by medical professionals that it would never happen. And that I had to lose a lot of weight to get my BMI down to a particular point where they would be able to give me medication to start my ovulation. And I just never lost the weight. And the very, very rude doctor said that she was removing me from her patient list and I was never seen again. So I came home, sobbed for quite a few days, and me and my husband decided that eventually we decided that we were okay. We had accepted that that wasn't in the cards for us, and that we were going to live a very happy, rich, child-free life. And we ended up getting our corgis. We planned lots of holidays. We were just going to be the cool aunt and uncle that were going to have the party house. People could come over. We weren't afraid of children or negative about children. We knew that it wasn't going to be a possibility for us. So we kind of just went on a different path. And then all of a sudden, the other day, I thought that I was going to need to see a doctor because I thought that maybe I had a lump in my boob. They were really, really painful. And I thought, well, if I go to the doctor, the first question they're going to ask is there a chance you could be pregnant? So I did the test just so that I didn't have to go through that whole conversation with them ever again. And it was positive. And I came downstairs to Scott, just shaking, crying. I was like, I don't know what to do. So we've been in shock. Well, we were shocked for the first couple of weeks where we didn't quite know what to do. It wasn't that we were going to go down the idea of going, well, we planned for a child-free life, so that's what we're going to do. It was more of we had to completely readjust back to how we were thinking before. But now we're both thrilled. And Scott saw the scan of the 12-week scan yesterday, and he's smitten. He's calling it his little dancer, because it was really wriggly. But yeah, that's the reason why we've decided to bring this podcast to an end. I'm not only struggling with my symptoms and like the exhaustion that comes with pregnancy, but also when it comes to having the baby, it's going to be very hard to record.
Yeah, recording with the baby is not going to be something that is going to be possible. So again, like we said, bad news, but good news, because I think that, we've stuck with this for a really long time, and hopefully you guys, as you inevitably reread the series, you can actually listen to our episodes. You can go back. They're still going to be available. If for any reason they ever disappear from Spotify, because the membership for the podcast service I use is quite expensive, I'm going to leave it up for a couple years. But it will always be on YouTube no matter what. I'm going to attempt to just leave it up on Spotify though. But guys, thank you for sticking with us as long as you have. And I hope that this episode is everything that you dreamed that the very last episode would be. I wish that we could continue the rest of the series, but it's I would rather.
We're also in a really weird point in court where there isn't a sensible place to stop. Even if we did continue, we would have to do the whole book, and it's a very, very long book, and we've only really just started.
Yeah, this makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that it's a little bit bittersweet. And I will keep you all updated with baby updates. Because I feel like it's all of our babies.
Yes. The Crave the Book Podcast tea room stays up. It can still be a place to chat.
Mm-hmm. And suggest baby names.
Baby Hudson. Baby Grace.
Baby Quaver.
It's baby Giuseppe.
Giuseppe.
I hate that name. I don't know. I can't think of Giuseppe as a modern adult name. I think of like a little old man.
Or like Keith. No baby Keiths exist. They're just forged at the age of 40.
they develop out of nowhere. So guys, if you have not read Cherish, now would be the time to leave, because we are going to be getting into it. And please remember that we read the book about 3 weeks ago. So
yes.
We're going to do our best to remember everything. Life got in the way. So we had to delay recording. But I want to start with, Grace and the gang. I think that the story really begins when they go to the Gargoyle Court.
Mm-hmm. Dragging Heather with
dragging Heather. Yes, I love that Heather just became like a core
little mascot.
Yeah, she just became a core part of the story, which I was not expecting at all. And I think that one of my favorite parts of the book, and when I really realized, like, okay, this one is gonna be funny, is the sports scene at the Gargoyle Court. And the pigeon on Jackson's head. And I mean,
the foam finger.
Is this your husband, though? Your husband isn't Hudson, because the sports and the yelling and is your
He's not a very yelly person when he watches sports. He paces a lot. I think it's because he sees people being active on the TV. He's like, no, I must be also active for them to win. But he doesn't yell a lot. He does do the whole despair, like, no. But that's more of like a gutting defeat rather than he doesn't boo or hiss or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that he would get a foam finger and just giggle to himself the entire time. I don't think he would ever do it in seriousness. Or klaxons, like the whole, like the spinny, clacky things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he would ever bother doing that, especially if I was next to him, because I may murder him.
Yeah.
Because it's so loud, especially with my hormones right now. Don't you move. Don't.
Definitely feels like, I don't know. Tracy has someone in her life who is a sports fan, because it was very much a very honest representation of
the crowd. Yeah.
And yeah. I laughed so hard at that scene, and poor Jackson getting frozen and a pigeon just coming down and landing on his head, and all the references to him being like the sad little goth boy. I'm just like, I love that we're finally poking fun at the trope that Jackson is the moody, broody.
Well, he's finally kind of okay, but the problem is it's been replaced. The moody, sad, emo kid has now been replaced and is now Macy.
That's true. I forgot to bring up poor Macy.
Which just irritated me the entire time. That is not how you deal with a depressed person.
Yeah. But
it took until like 60% of the way through the book to finally ask Macy, like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Well, they could have had that conversation way earlier, and she would have at least enjoyed the football.
Well, Macy wasn't with them yet. Macy was.
Oh yeah, no, she wasn't.
Yeah, they
kept on like bringing her up though.
Yeah, because they hadn't heard from her, and all they knew was that she kept getting schools changed because of her behavior, which doesn't sound like Macy at all.
No.
So,
You know, have you ever watched Buffy?
like
Buffy the Vampire?
bits and pieces.
Oh, yeah. So when Willow goes dark, Willow. That's what I'm imagining Macy. She's like really bright and bubbly, like do possible lesbian, but then all of a sudden, dark eyeshadow.
Broody.
It's like she's like, yeah, but what if I want to kill him?
The sports. So the whole purpose of, you know, Grace and Hudson and the gang going to the Gargoyle Court was they needed to talk to, do you pronounce it as Jikon or Jikon? Yeah.
Jikon.
I've heard it both ways.
But then I thought, I was like, I just think that like maybe it's a kind of Oriental Asian name.
I didn't.
And I just said like, yeah, and I just kind of feel like je rather than je. I think je is French.
Jikon.
Perhaps in Spanish it's actually Jikon.
Jikon.
Hola, me llamo Jikon.
But they need to talk to Jikon about
getting into the shadow realm.
They don't want it to go down the way it went down last time because Grace lost her memory.
And there was a time dragon.
And it was just a huge mess. So
they didn't even know how to get out.
Yeah, they've got to find a way to get in, get out, not lose their memories. They have no idea what they're doing, and they need to talk to him. But he is so obsessed with this game that they cannot get him to even pay attention. Then Grace gets interrupted by what is her guard's name? I always forget her name because
Artelia. It's like it's an Irish guy. So what's your name? Artelia.
Artelia. But apparently they've got a prisoner down in the dungeon that they're interrogating. Now, I'm going to be honest. I was like, it's Macy. They've got Macy down there.
No, I know. I didn't think of that.
Really?
No.
Did you have any inkling as to who it might be? Like,
no, but I was hoping that it was going to be someone really significant, and it kind of wasn't.
Yeah, it's like, it's just some girl.
Yeah. But like the way that they described her, well, the way that Tracy described her was so cool that I thought she was going to be a bigger part.
Yeah.
Especially as Grace let her go.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, maybe like, do you reckon that she's going to find them again? But no, not really.
Yeah, she was a hunter from the crone because apparently the crone has hunters.
She has a vendetta against supernaturals.
Yeah, like the crone is just completely flown off the deep end and is just suddenly like wants to.
I'm free.
Right. I want to kill everybody now. Yep.
And she does it with these little bags of dust.
Yeah.
This hunter state. But like, she's like, yeah. And during this interrogation, Grace realizes, because everybody wants to torture this girl to try and get information out of her. And Grace is the only one kind of like patient enough and smart enough and a bit more insightful to realize that even torture is not going to get any information out of this girl. And I think for a while, Artelia and is it Alistair that's in the room with them? I kind of think that she's a weak link.
I thought it was just Hudson.
Is it Hudson? Hudson in the room. Like they're a little bit disappointed that she's not willing to torture, to get information to save her court. But she's like, well, there is no point in torturing somebody if the only outcome that we're going to get is that we're hurting someone for nothing.
Yeah.
And she was very much like, I'm not that kind of queen, but everybody seems to see it as a vulnerability rather than a strength.
Right. But then she has the great idea to let the prisoner get away and think that she's gotten away with getting away so that they can follow her, which I thought was quite smart, especially if they knew that there was no other way they were going to get information out of her it made sense to just let her go and try to get as much information as they could. But while that was going down, they decide to try again to
Convince him.
Talk to Jikon. Jikon. And during this whole time that they're trying to talk to him, he is making the most disgusting dessert pasta.
Well, yeah, he goes to Alistair and the Bloodletter's kind of apartment, which is a bit strange. But yeah, he goes there as if he's lived there his entire life and starts making food. And the dragons are really interested because they're like, oh, yeah, food. But everybody else watching what ingredients he's putting into it.
Yeah, like...
They're like, no.
He puts, like, chocolate syrup and, like, eggs and, like... Doesn't he, like, crush some cookies or, like, some Oreos or something in it?
He walks around with purpose, like he's looking for specific ingredients, but it does sound like, you know, he's a little bit like a pregnant lady who's just going, yep, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And this, and then that, and then this, and everybody else is kind of just following on like, what the hell is he making? And I just thought it was really funny that Alistair's like, yeah, I'll have a bowl.
Yeah. And this whole time, he's being very standoffish about the Bloodletter who disappeared, by the way.
Yeah, like it was into thin air. She was stood there one minute and just went pop.
Yeah, in the middle of the conversation, she out of nowhere disappeared. And everybody's like, oh, should we be concerned about that? Like, is that cool? But
where did she go?
Right. It was very weird, but I knew that there had to be something because he would not continue like giving information. It's almost like he was waiting for her to come back or give approval.
Well, it wasn't his story to tell.
Right. And we don't really find out till the end, you know.
Yeah. But he tells the story about how the Shadow Realm was created as a prison for the Shadow Queen because of something heinous that she did. And he does say that there's a way in. And that involves... I don't remember what he specifically says is the way in. I remember the way in. But I don't remember what he said was the way in.
Yeah. This is the part where he shares about the Shadow Queen's poison. And basically, the Shadow Queen was the reason that all the gargoyles ended up getting poisoned and had to be frozen in time to stop that poison because, you know, that was like the thing that she was able to trade.
Mm-hmm. And he very much says that there is no cure.
Yeah. So ultimately, that whole discussion, like we get a brief idea of you know, we know that there's something going on. We know that there's definitely something going on with the Bloodletter, but we don't really find out until later why that was so important. So we'll come back to that. But Grace makes the decision to pass the crown on and give it to her grandfather because there is a chance that she might not come back.
Mm-hmm. She didn't want it to die with her.
Yeah. And he was very much like, you're going to come back for this, right? Like... don't come back and then not want it back. Yeah.
Because he definitely didn't want the burden of it.
Yeah. And all while this is going on, Grace has been trying to kind of connect to Hudson. He will not get off his phone. And she has these huge concerns because the vampire court right now is completely unattended. Apparently Hudson and Jackson's weird aunt and family, they're just kind of like being all sneaky weaky trying to
get the throne.
Yeah. And it's very clear what they want, but that wouldn't be a good choice, you know, for the future of the vampire court. So Grace is in this really awkward position where she's like, I know it would be better for Hudson to take the throne or Jackson to take the throne, but there's already...
I have my duties here.
Yeah, there's she and Hudson have to rule the gargoyle court. And if Jackson attempts to rule the vampire court, that's going to mess up things with him and Flint, because there's already a lot of issues in the dragon court with Nuri not having a dragon heart.
Yeah.
So
well, she kind of goes in this whole like sort of overthinking road where she then kind of comes to the conclusion that Hudson may be thinking about leaving her.
Yeah.
All over sort of like almost like a string of texts that he's constantly receiving. And she's even kind of brought it up to him and he's just not saying anything. And he's also a few times, because he spots someone, he's adamant that somebody is watching them when they are on their way to go meet the guys before they get to the court. Then she realizes that the hunters are everywhere. So she's like, well, maybe it was that.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like just trying to keep me safe and he's like connecting with other people trying to like catch hunters. And she's like, this is just weird.
And then it gets even worse, because when they go to the vampire court next to go see Mackay, and
who is still dying,
who is like barely hanging on, they need to take him with them. And when they arrive in the vampire court, they don't even know where they are, because it has been completely remodeled and it's all like white.
It's been renovated, y'all.
Yeah.
It's been home makeovered. They moved that bus and
and she's like, where did all this come from? And then she realizes like, oh, Hudson did it. When did he do this? If he's been...
And why did he do this if he is fully committed to being Gargoyle King?
Yeah.
Because she was kind of like, where does your loyalties lie? If you want to be with me, you don't want to be the Vampire King, and yet you're kind of bringing it up to a modern standard and changing everything to be your taste.
Yeah. And then they go to Cyrus's old office, and she realizes that like it is completely smashed apart, and Hudson could have done that with his mind, but he chose to do it with a sledgehammer. Like she saw a sledgehammer propped up in the corner, and then she realized that because there was so much dust that had settled, in the space, it was something that he had done a while ago. Like,
yeah.
And he never brought it up to her, which means that he was like dealing with some serious
turmoil. Rage. Yeah.
Like,
and he's kind of embarrassed watching her kind of go through those moments of understanding what's happened.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really talk about it either.
Yeah, it's very much a male reaction to like hide feelings.
Well, but also to be a little bit more violent. I mean, I've never punched a wall out of frustration, but I've seen my husband punch a door out of frustration.
Yeah.
Like put a hole through a wall. Like it's a very male.
Young male too.
Testosterone they are fueled by their hormones the same way we are. It's just the hormones that come out are different.
Yeah, for us, we like our lip quivers and we start getting all teary eyed, and for them, it's just raw.
And we want to talk through our emotions.
Yeah.
But like that might have been Hudson's only way of coping, and he might have come through the other side of his anger. And Grace doesn't even accept that may have helped him. She just kind of thinks, oh, wow, he must be on edge and completely about to lose his mind if he's doing this. It's like, well, no, sometimes it's cathartic to destroy things. There are reasons why rage rooms exist.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even the person that goes there, like, wanting to do it that gets the most out of it. Like, if you go as a group of friends, like, well, let's come to this rage room. I want to just punch shit and get a big bat and hit windscreens and just get all this anger out. But it's that one quiet person in the background that walks over to something and just absolutely annihilates someone that you're like, well, you needed to come here and just vent, get it out. And I feel kind of sad that Grace didn't kind of accept that maybe he is a bit more of a violent person than she knew.
Yeah.
Oh, and that could have just kind of been his way of coping.
Her whole friend dynamic here is getting topsy-turvy, because this is also the point when he's talking about that he's probably going to leave Flint. They haven't looked happy their entire time together. They really haven't.
No. But did you find that Tracy jumped them into a relationship without it blossoming?
Yeah, but I think it was
in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that they were definitely just in a relationship, but my thought process is that I'm sure that there's more we just, as the readers, aren't present for it.
Oh, we had to kind of read between the lines.
Because Flint isn't, but Jackson is kind of a very private person, so to respect his privacy, I would assume that maybe Flint wouldn't,
Yeah. It's just the way that they were written together, the only reason that I would know that they were in a relationship was because Grace said it.
Yeah.
They don't interact as a couple. So that was making me think like either they have been a couple for so long that they don't need those PDAs, those public displays, or they're not as much of a relationship that Grace thinks they are.
Right. They definitely came off as awkward, not very close. But
yeah, which is what happens when you have a new relationship and they're not quite used to touching each other in public, and especially for a new gay couple as well. Like Jackson was not gay.
Right. Well, and they just started, like, they've been friends for so long. Can you imagine, like, in the Dragon Court bonus chapter, there is the scene where later in the story when Grace and Flint talk when they're at the curator's, and Flint does his, the hardest part about loving a Vega, discussion.
Yeah.
It actually, the Dragon Court bonus chapters talk about what Flint does after him and Grace talk. He goes up and, he's kind of stewing about to talk to Jackson. And he recalls like the first time that he realized that he like loved Jackson, and they were like 13 doing like a study session. And Jackson apparently like bent down to get like a bottle of water, and they had that like slow eye contact where they were about to kiss. And then and then Jackson just like didn't make the move. And Flint, he kind of realized at that moment that, well, maybe this isn't real. And yeah, it was. I'm glad that she put that scene in there because it really does define the rest of their relationship as well. So they go and they check on Mackay. He's doing real bad. They've got a healer who comes in and
just a little bit.
Yeah, he's like a little skeleton.
He's a little bit comery.
Yeah, and the healer basically says like, you can move him, but.
We need to drug him.
Yeah, he does not have very long. So they drug him, and then
with the full intention of taking him to the Shadow Realm as well.
Yeah, they're doing.
I was like, this is crazy. Like taking him like a little backpack.
Oh man, Jackson fireman like carries him. I'm like, that is the worst possible way for you to carry someone who is frail and hurt. Like baby carry him. Don't carry him over your shoulder.
You have the strength to. The reason why firemen lifts like exist is because it's an easiest way to carry someone no matter the weight.
Right.
But when you're a vampire, you can lift anything.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how uncomfortable poor Mackay probably was, like all.
Nah, he was drugged. He's fine.
Yeah. So they.
And then the Grace and Hudson end up in the war room.
Oh, that's right.
Don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's where they go into, that's Cyrus's office where it's all torn up.
Okay, yeah. She meets the aunt and
that's
cousins of Hudson and Jackson. She realizes, she's vying for her son to be the gargoyle king. No, the vampire king. And I'm like, I thought to be on the circle, you had to be a mated pair.
That's true.
So who was the mate?
We don't know.
Because there was never referenced. So I was like, was this even a potential candidate, or was it just all kind of like scaremongering?
Right. I mean,
we just need to get them married. To be fair, right? You could just get away with telling someone that you were mates.
Yeah, there's no way to tell.
How would they know?
That's true.
Like, the only people that would know that you were mates would be yourself, maybe a witch, but they're vampires. They can just go, nah, you're not doing a spell on me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I was just kind of wondering whether that nephew was genuinely a potential for the throne.
Well, it was
or not,
enough
because
that
he had to be
it was
mated.
It was enough that Hudson was very concerned about it. Because
yeah, but I think that it's Hudson being a little bit of a dum-dum, because he could have just, dude, where's your mate? Because
it's his aunt.
Love. Yeah, I know some of those mother-son relationships can get wild, yo.
Grody.
Ew.
So they get Mackay, and their first stop needs to be the witch's court, and they are hopefully
because they need to ask a witch about the entrance that Jacquon says.
Yes, and Grace is also hoping that she'll see Macy. So they arrive. They are immediately greeted by Macy, and Macy has green hair. She's like all gothed up and
proper broody.
Yeah, and her whole personality has changed.
Yeah, which is huge red flags for me. Like, that would be like something has happened. That's not just a change of character where they're a little bit sad. That's I don't care anymore.
Right. Like, have you been assaulted? Like, why? This is a really...
I don't care what fate of the world is there. I would be immediately pulling my friend aside, going to a different room and going, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's not the aesthetic. Like, the change of her look isn't it. It's that Macy feels very much like she doesn't want to be touched now. She's not really expressing joy. Even seeing Grace, like, she's not expressing the type of joy that she would have previously.
No, and she definitely seems to have this kind of sense of anarchy as well. Like, she's very much like, oh, you want to see the queen? Okay, that's fine. Let's go see the queen.
Right. Like,
and it's like, well, actually, like, what about like diplomacy and like bureaucracy? And like the last time that we went to the witch's court, there was a whole like procedure in order to go see the queen, and even then she said, "Fuck off!" Like, and you're just gonna take us to her? Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't go well because they hop into a portal, jump right into the witch's court, and immediately start getting attacked. Eden gets turned into
and Macy doesn't follow either.
Yeah, she decides to go last. Like, she assumes everything's going to be fine. Eden gets...
we don't know that yet. Like, I genuinely thought that she threw them in. Like,
haha, gotcha.
Which kind of adds to the worry that her character is a little bit lacking in judgment.
No,
right
I didn't.
Now.
I didn't suspect that. I didn't like have any inkling that she was, double crossing them. I thought that she figured that everything would be fine.
Oh no, I didn't think that she was double crossing them. I just thought that she'd suddenly turned a bit chaotic, like a bit more like there's no consequences to anything I do.
Right.
Which is what happens when you do go past the point of caring and you become a bit risk oriented.
Yeah.
You're a bit carefree and just go, yeah, whatever happens, happens. And it's like, well, actually, that wasn't what Macy used to be like. Macy used to overthink and worry and ask constant questions. And it's like, all of a sudden, all of that Maciness has just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get thrown into this room and all these spells are being thrown wide and crazy. Jackson, who's still carrying Mackay, has to suddenly save Mackay from like spells and protect him, so he gets hit, and it becomes very what's the word? Reminiscent? What's the word? Reminiscent? What's the word? Similar to the trials in court, where like everyone gets like a little bit of a weird spell hit them.
Yeah, I laughed so hard. So the funniest one, I love when bad situations get worse in a comical way. That's like the thing that makes me giggle. So Eden got...
Like no one lost it. No one loses an arm or something. None of them are serious.
Eden gets hit with a spell. She turns into a gummy blob, But then she gets hit with another one that turns her into a snake, but she's still gummy, so she's a big gummy worm. Flint is hit and is scooting around on his back for some reason. He's like, I can't even remember what happened to him, but I know that he was scooting around on his back, like using his legs to scoot himself across the floor. All of Hudson's hair falls out. Which
is crazy. It's so funny.
And Jackson he shrinks. He gets turned into a tiny little mouse.
And meanwhile, Grace, because she's a gargoyle, she's to get hit by anything.
Yeah, she's just standing there like, what the hell?
What is going on? And then Macy just suddenly comes in through the portal and she's like, oh shit.
Wait.
She's like, stop.
Yeah. So we'll skip all of the talking. Basically, the reason that they needed to get there was to learn more about getting to the Shadow Realm. And we also find out about the two daughters, about the Shadow Queen's two daughters, and we kind of see how that tied to Charm. So I had seen a couple people who had asked, like, oh, do you have to have read Charm to understand Cherish? Absolutely.
Yes.
But we learn about Lorelai, who is the daughter who has basically had like almost like her energy siphoned by the other daughter of the Shadow Queen. And she's living kind of this half life. She really isn't able to even leave the witch's court. She's just kind of stuck in like a teenager's bedroom type.
She reminded me of, you know the children that have like all the autoimmune disorders where they have to kind of live in a bubble.
Yeah.
That's kind of what she reminded me of.
Frail.
But she was very upbeat about it, because it was kind of like meeting a celebrity, because she's lived in a bubble her entire life. Hearing stories about Grace and Hudson, all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm finally meeting you.
Yeah, she was so excited. And then when they explained to her like what they're trying to do, she's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, my mom isn't really, she's not a bad person.
Yeah.
So, but at this point,
she has memories. She also has memories of her sister, and at no point does she kind of let on that her sister did it deliberately.
Yeah.
She just kind of was like, yeah, my sister kind of just ended up taking power from me. But she does say that she has some Shadow Realm powers, and that if they wanted to leave Mackay with her, she would try to slow down the effects of the poison. And they're like, we've literally just met you. How can we trust you with his body? And he's like, he's not dead yet.
Yeah.
And they said, like, how long do you think he has? And doesn't she give him like 2 weeks or a week?
Oh, I think it was a week. I think that, and for only having like a week or 2 weeks, however long it was, their sense of urgency during this period is not the best. Their time management skills are not great.
No. But yeah, they end up leaving him with Lorelai
after he feeds. He feeds from her. He grabs her wrist and is like, ah.
And they kind of work out like a communication method as well. Like, but they realize like, well, okay, we can text her, but we can only text her when we're out of the shadow.
Right. So it's absolutely useless.
It's kind of like saying like, I'll text you when I'm on the flight.
Right.
But you have a finite amount of time before the airplane goes, before you have no service.
Yeah. So I love this note that I made. When they go to leave the witch's court, they've left Mackay. They're going to go, now that they've got Lorelai's story kind of as something to leverage when they talk to the Shadow Queen, they're going to all jump into this portal to go into the Shadow Realm, or the fountain, I guess, outside of the witch's court. They decide that, Heather, you're going to get a cab home. You're going to take a flight. This is too dangerous for you. And I put in my notes, I wish Heather could have stayed. And then ... Oh, wait. because Heather decides at the last minute, when no one can do anything about it, she just jumps right in.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's very much like Grace has already arrived in the shadow realm, and she turns around and she's like, Heather, what are you doing here?
She's like, whoopsie, you can't say me back now. Ha ha ha, lol.
Yeah. I made a note that said, Heather is either going to save the day or sacrifice herself. I'm calling it now.
Yeah. But we also have like some moments of sadness from Macy because she sees Eden and Heather flirting.
Yeah, yeah. And then we
also see love triangle.
Well, we also see Eden and Macy, like when they're finally seeing each other again, and we see Heather start to get upset as well. So yeah, there's a whole thing going on. I wasn't able to predict like what was going to happen there. I was very confused.
No, me neither. Yeah. So anyway, they land right, just somehow they land right by the farm.
Yeah.
That Hudson and Grace stayed at.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are the odds?
Yeah, it was very perfect. And the whole time, you know, everybody is kind of like wondering why Hudson is looking so like antsy.
Frantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And only Grace knows it's because he's waiting for Smokey. He's waiting to see
his little kitty kit.
Yes, his little baby, his little Smokey. And immediately when they get to the farm, they get...
Whilst they're talking about all the food, because they're like, well, it's like everything purple here. And she's like, yeah, but you could host some poos. And they're like, what the fuck is poos?
That's what it was like you coming to the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you want some chili spaghetti? Do I want what?
Yeah, like you sound like you're making it up.
And coney dogs? You want a coney dog?
But at the same time, it's like, is she having me on? Is she taking the piss out of me? Or is it actually a real thing?
Going to the Piggly Wiggly?
You don't have Piggly Wigglies. That's a Southern thing.
No, we don't have Piggly Wigglies.
Guys, there's if for anybody who isn't American, there is a store, like a superstore called Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly. Now,
and just wild.
So, when they get to the farm, they get just like attacked by Umbras, and at first everybody's like, "No!" and is hitting them, and like,
but there's no substance to them. It's just this like shadowy puff things, so they don't get hurt. But Grace is like, "No, leave them. They're fine.
Don't hurt them." Yeah. And
is it does Marilee come out first?
Yeah, the little girl.
Yeah, which I love the name Marilee, but I suggested it to Scott, and he went like, "It sounds too much like celery." I'm like, oh,
Marilee. So she is super stoked. She comes out of the house, sees Hudson, is very excited, does not remember Grace at all, has no recollection.
How offended would you be?
This whole thing made me uncomfortable. The way Grace was like, Hudson, you deserve the spotlight. But I would be like, actually, I was here too. My timeline just got erased, but I helped because
I'd helped.
I was a part of it.
Yeah. And I think that I would also be like that, consider like, do I not exist? I'm like touching myself like,
am I real?
Am I a figment of my own imagination? Have I been just floating around this whole time? Not a real person. Like, because every single person that they meet from then on does not remember Grace. And I would genuinely feel like, shit, am I not real?
Yeah. I would, man, it makes you feel like that whole time frame was just like a waste if you didn't.
Yeah. Like the fucking gratitude, guys.
Right.
And they go to the farmhouse where she introduces them all to the parents, which I can't remember the names.
Arts and
then they went, have you seen the Hudson Shrine?
Yeah. Well, is this where Grace refers to Hudson as Hudsy Wudsy? Because I thought that it was great that he became Hudsy Wudsy after constantly doing the Jaxie Waxy.
Yeah.
Jaxie Waxy and Hudsy Wudsy.
And did you also get really confused by so they're eating and then they suddenly all get up and like, oh, they're here. And they chase people away from their garden, from their farm. Yes! And it's because they're soil thieves. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And I get out of my crops. I thought that they were trying to steal like the vegetables, but they're like, no, they're trying to steal our soil. Everything is wonky.
Like,
so
it's weird.
They can't remember Grace. There is a weird shrine with a little statue of Hudson in the corner, and like everybody's like, are these?
Where did you even get this statue?
Right? Are they gonna try to steal your skin? Like what even is this?
Yep, it's a little bit creepy, just a little bit too fangirly.
Yeah, but Marilee pulls out her book bag and reveals that she has a little tiny baby Smokey, because Smokey's timeline, it reset as well, right? And she just became, I mean, it's the same Smokey, but a baby.
Which annoyed me, because they remembered Smokey, despite the fact that her timeline had started again, but they don't remember Grace. What the hell?
But Smokey clearly remembers Hudson.
Yeah, and the reunion was just so cute.
Yeah.
So cute.
I was very happy that Smokey became a key part of the story again, because Smokey was my favorite character in Charm.
And she still hates Grace.
And she does. She still chitters and chatters and gets pissed off.
So Grace is like, maybe she does remember me. It's like, no, she just hates you.
She hated you then. She hates you now. So then we get to, they get to the gates of...
they find out that the Shadow Queen doesn't have a particular place where she is. Nobody knows where she is.
Yeah.
So they know that they need to draw her out of where she's hiding. So they're like, well, I know what we'll do is we'll go to the city and ask people their thoughts on how to bring her back, out.
Adari, whatever it was.
Yeah. But it's not called Adari anymore.
They roll up and they open the gates and it says, welcome to Vegaville.
Yep.
And this is the part where I remember I was sitting outside on my patio and it was nighttime. I have like my patios all lit up and I just started audibly laughing. And I think I laughed like through the next like 5 chapters.
It just gets more and more ridiculous.
Yeah. So my favorite thing is how Jackson is reacting to it, because like this is his last name too, but it's about his brother who he has always been kind of sour towards. Like, he's like, are you serious? Are y'all fucking with me right now?
Meanwhile, Grace thinks it's amazing because she's like, oh, finally my Hudson is getting the recognition that he deserves, but also I have this slight little bit of power over him because I get to tease him about it. Because Hudson he's not that... Well, I mean, how would you react if you walked into a town that had like a full-on fucking shrine and...
Dude, I've had people recognize me in a grocery store from my YouTube channel when I've like not been prepared for it. And
fucking humble brag. Look at you go.
It is so uncomfortable to be recognized in public.
In your sweatpants.
Man, and for everybody who's like podcast listeners, like I am a business coach and have a relatively large YouTube channel. So it's very uncomfortable, like when I am occasionally recognized
without your makeup on.
Yes.
In your sweatpants.
God. Because if I'm running to like the grocery store, like I am usually there to get in and get out as quickly as possible, and I am not dressed up. I am like disgusting. And yeah. But so they are looking around, and it's turned into like a tourist attraction. It reminds me of in Shrek.
Yeah, welcome to do that.
Yeah. This is in Vegaville. There's a gift shop, and they're like, oh, we have got to go in here.
Oh, the gift shop was genuinely one of my favorite scenes.
I laughed so damn hard. There were like T-shirts with Hudson, little statues.
Yeah. I was really hoping there's like a Pez dispenser with his little bobbleheads, like little earrings and everything. And everybody's just ridiculing Hudson this whole time. There's even like little Hudson costumes as well. And I was like, what would even be in there? Like, it would be just an Armani tux.
Knockoff Armani.
And like, and a little like bouffant wig. Just like, maybe some fags.
It reminds me of like the kids who would stand in line, like the little kids who went to go see the Twilight movie, and they'd be in like their little costumes.
Yeah.
Like little Edwards and little tiny Bellas.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. No, I love that gift shop scene. And they all come out, and Hudson's just looking really pissed, and he turns around. He's Grace wearing a Mrs. Vega hat.
You know what, to me, this is merch opportunity. Tracy's like, let's make up some merch, and then someone will make this merch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
it'll be
Mrs. Vega hat.
It'll be an Entangled Teens.
We could do one as our giveaway.
That would be great. You do a Mrs. Vega hat. So
yeah,
that whole I love when things get like are bad and then they get worse in a comical way. Mm-hmm. They continue walking, and they come across a giant statue in the middle of town. Of a big naked Hudson
who's well endowed,
and everybody's like, I can't stop looking at it, and poor Smokey pops out.
Hey, wait, I want you to remember the best quote of the entire movie. Like, I'm gonna say movie.
There's so much of it.
Flint whispers into Jackson says, "Still think I got the better brother." I was like, damn. Like, how big is he?
Oh my goodness. I'm flipping.
It was in direct reference to the size of his junk, right?
I loved it. I'm like trying to, I'm actually flipping through the book because
you don't want to forget things.
I'm trying to find the scene.
Well, they notice that Smokey goes a bit mental, goes a bit wild, and starts going wow, and starts running around, tearing across this field, chasing people who are having like picnics and things like that. She's going crazy, and people think, oh God, she's gone wild, she's gone crazy. But it turns out she steals a picnic blanket from a couple that's on the floor, and she's like gonna start running back to the statue with this big blanket draping behind her, and she starts wrapping it around him like a little loincloth.
I found it. I found the scene. Heather saying it's just like right there. Just like right there, Grace, really big and right there.
I've had a few men like that.
It leads me to the question, like, is he just like full staff like right now, or is it I don't
know, but the thing is they're gonna have the people who made that statue were going to have some part of like creative license. Like, at no point did Hudson pose naked.
No, they had to use their imagination.
Yeah, but how much of their imagination did they use? Like, did they go like, like Michelangelo, kind of like, we're going to be subtle and respectful to the size, nice and honest, or do they go like full on child's drawing of a penis? Right. Like, nice and veiny. Just, but yeah, it was just uncomfortable.
I think
and I loved it.
Smokey, when she pops out and just like screeches like, ah!
Like she's seen her dad naked statue. She's like, no,
cover it up.
no.
Oh God. So yeah, that's, oh my goodness.
And meanwhile, the people in the town square have started to recognize who it is.
And they just start swarming.
Yeah. And Grace is like, oh. And it's like, if they started chanting, it wouldn't be weird. Like, this town has got a bit crazy.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is like Grace is just like, he'll be fine. And they just go into the inn and get their room settled and leave poor Hudson out there.
Yeah. But basically, everybody only has the memory of Hudson saving the town.
Yeah.
Because he single-handedly saved the town.
Yeah. At this point, maybe it would be annoying. Like I would definitely want some of the credit if I was involved and everyone had just forgotten me. But at the same time, the idea of being like stormed and having,
I would want to know the story. I'm like, okay, so how did he do it all alone then, guys? Tell me everything.
Tell me how he single-handedly saved the town.
Yeah. Because as far as I remember, I was pretty much fucking big part of it. But tell me, go on. Tell me how he did it alone. And like surely because he was there for 1.5 years, maybe 2 years,
a while, yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what else did he get up to? Because a lot of the things that he did were kind of connected to me.
Yeah.
So did he see anyone? Who? I would just be fishing.
Yeah.
Fishing for deets.
So apparently one of their favorite places that we didn't hear about in Charm, but there was an art warehouse which
was so cool.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, damn, I don't remember this. And I was like, oh, no, I don't remember this for a reason. It was just not written in.
Yeah. In Charm, apparently, there's like a cool art warehouse that has lots of art supplies and sculpting supplies where the citizens can come and just use the supplies. And Grace decides to take everybody there there's like a graffiti garden and everybody gets to use spray paint and spray paint on the walls. But Grace uses that as an opportunity to try to like talk to Macy. And Macy immediately shuts her down. Like,
yes,
will not talk to her. And Grace is like, okay, like no biggie. It's cool.
Yeah.
But that's like the first time that Macy has ever done that.
Yep. And also there's a bit where they found like all these paintings of Hudson.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's one just kind of stood there and it's like they start like ripping into it. And I think they realized that eventually that Grace had done it and it was the one thing that had remained.
Which is weird.
From her timeline. But she never investigates it.
Yeah, we don't even really
She's
care
just
much more about that.
Like, what if it was a portkey?
Oh.
It's the one thing that, like, genuinely the one thing that was left over from when she was there, and she doesn't go, well, that's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Macy, could you witchy woo woo and find out what the fuck is this?
Macy just wiggles her fingers and goes, witchy woo woo.
And she's like, it turns out if you touch it, you become a gazillionaire. You're like, whoa.
You never would have known.
Because you find out the lottery numbers for next week. I'm like, damn.
They leave here. They leave the warehouse, and this is where they see all the little tweens, and they're
When do they meet the show manager?
They did that when they first arrived after the gift shop. The guy, he was trying to get them to.
We need a concert, guys.
And Hudson just dismissed him immediately. But he was, little guy was trying to get him to do another concert. And
I think Grace was like, shit, I'm like, I played the triangle too.
Yeah, I helped. But I thought that the tweens that were all dressed up like little Hudsons and little Graces, I was put off because there was also a little Jackson and a little Flint, and my thought is like, where did they this group just arrived? How did they get costumes so fast?
I don't know, but
very cute, though.
They clearly like, oh my god, the boy band has arrived. We better get outfits for them all.
Yeah.
Oh.
They did decide to go ahead and do a concert, though, because they thought that it would be a great way to lure out the Shadow Queen. And then they have this...
And Hudson only says that he'll do it if Jackson also helps.
Yeah, and I love this because Jackson, at first, he was like, wait. But then Jackson starts like...
leaning into it.
Yeah, I think that it kind of helps him to come out of his shell a little bit.
Yeah. The Vega brothers.
The Vega brothers.
Like the Jonas.
Yeah.
Just like the Jonas brothers.
Which in reality, a massive stadium style concert with Hudson doing cover songs and Jackson playing drums does not a concert make. But
no, it does not.
I'm just saying that they should have had little baby Smokey on stage with some ribbons dancing.
Just like little ribbon gymnastics.
Would have been super cute. And I love that Hudson introduces Jackson on stage as the Hare.
Yes.
Because that's what Jessica called Edward in Breaking Dawn during her wedding or during the wedding speech.
Yeah. No, I loved everything up until this point where just it was sweet and innocent. It was a bit jokey. There was like a lot of light-hearted parts of it.
First time Jackson ever plays drums. We never hear him play drums.
The stresses were like normal life stresses, like, oh, what if I can't perform?
Yeah.
Like what if I like a stage fright? Like I'm scared of going on. I don't want to let him down and things like that. And I was like, I think you've forgotten the reason why we're doing this concert.
I was actually really bummed out when the concert got interrupted. I was like, man, I was having fun.
Yeah. They knew that it was going to immediately happen. Like they prepared for it and yet were still shocked when it happened.
Yeah, I know. And they were brutally though taken down. Like
yeah.
And it's so embarrassing because they were all in like, Grace is in like a Vega Brothers shirt and her Mrs. Vega hat. And I'm just like, these are the worst ever outfits to wear to prison.
I'd like to think that like Hudson is wearing like some Elton John style thing, remnant from when the mayor.
Yeah. Jackson's
just a little like Saturday Night Live.
Jackson's all like gothed out, like the lead singer in 9 Inch Nails, and then Hudson is just flamboyant.
It's like Saturday Night Fever, not Saturday Night Live. But yeah, it's like just proper like disco style with a little disco ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, they like then there's like it's quite comical, but in a really traumatic way because they are all bound, gagged, and then have a bag put over their head.
Yeah,
or they blindfolded, but like magically.
Yeah. And they're being transported in some type of vehicle, and they're all just kind of like bumping into each other.
And Grace falls into Jackson's lap, and the only reason that she knows that is because he smells like Jackson.
Yeah,
she's like, shit. And if she can smell him, he can definitely smell who landed in his lap.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all trying to recognize each other from their like muffles. And no one's doing a very good job of it.
And it's
They're
very
just kind of like.
I definitely didn't think it was going to be as quick getting to the Shadow Queen. Like it took no time at all. Like it was like they were being treated like prisoners, and then like bam, here's the Queen. Like, oh, here's a buffet set out. Like,
well, I also thought it was really funny that all the guards were being fucking dicks to them. Yeah. Like, you need to stand in line. And they're all just said, like, dude, we're blindfolded, gagged, and bound. We don't know where the fucking line is. And how are we supposed to get in line if we can't see? And it's just, he keeps repeating it. And I think the Shadow Queen comes out and she's like, well, maybe the reason why they're not in a fucking line is because they can't see, you dumbhead.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, actually, I quite like her. I like her already.
Yeah.
She's a no-nonsense bitch.
So they go in and explain the whole situation, and
she's angry.
My God, she made me angry. But another part that made me giggle was when they finally brought up Lorelai, because they had literally just seen her other daughter.
Yeah,
when she's like, she don't say my daughter's name.
How dare you bring her name into my kingdom?
And I put it like all caps because all I could think about was Will Smith. Keep my daughter's name out your fucking mouth.
Fucking mouth, you bitch.
Slap. Yeah. So they strike a deal. Basically that...
Which is a shitty deal because there were so many fucking loopholes for the Shadow Queen and none for Grace.
Yeah. They strike a deal that Grace is going to separate the two daughters.
And she doesn't know how she's going to do that.
Yeah. Has no idea how she's going to do it.
She's just going to do it though. But she's going to do it though. She's bargaining everybody's lives on it.
Yeah. She's going to separate.
And she's like, yeah, I can do that. Definitely can do that.
Separate the daughters in return for saving Mackay. It's just, I don't know.
And this queen has absolutely no vested interest in Mackay. Like none. Why would she do anything for him?
A stranger.
The only reason that the only reason that she is doing it for her is because they've mentioned Lorelai.
She didn't even really act like she believes it, but then she kind of like, I don't know.
Well, I think she's at the end of her her attempts at trying, isn't she? Really,
she's out of ideas.
Yeah. And we do see the other sister walk through, who is a fucking bitch.
Yeah,
the way that she speaks to the mum is quite rude, as far as I remember.
Yeah, it was. She was excited to have like a movie night with the mom, and then like she like throws the popcorn down on the ground.
Yeah, she proper stroppy.
But maybe it's more that her mom has been endlessly trying. Like, again, that's a common trope, endlessly trying to achieve a goal
she doesn't have.
Yeah.
And ignoring the ones she does have.
Exactly. That's how I read it. Like, yes, the daughter did overreact and she was she was
brat,
an absolute brat, like threw a temper tantrum. But maybe it was like, my mom has been trying like all this time to do something that she has failed at all these times. And she's literally, you're back at this again. Like,
you're dangling her carrot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she gives them she gives them like a deadline, which they already have a deadline. So she has a deadline within a deadline to bring back the cure for the separation, which they know as being the dew of the celestial dew, right? So that's how she remembers. That's how she knows that she's going to get them apart. So yeah, there's like the dew of the celestials, or the celestial dew, and she's like, yeah, I can do that. She has absolutely no fucking idea, how to get there.
Some bittersweet tree that.
Yeah, she's some like gotta meet someone, the curator. Also, she's also getting some cryptic texts from Remy the whole time. He's like, I'll be there when I need to be there.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, thanks.
So,
they
have to go back to the city where they meet with the Chupacabra, who is going to take Polo, who's going to take them to basically to
a smuggler's cove.
Yeah. Now, what confused me is I had it in my head for some reason that he was a Chupacabra the whole time, because they just keep referring to him as a Chupacabra. So I just like pictured like him looking
like a strange wolfy looking thing.
Yeah, but then he transformed into like a terrifying like.
Have you watched Suicide Squad?
I haven't.
Oh, there's a character in it called the Weasel,
mm-hmm.
and that's what I think he looks like, just like some really bad taxidermied ferret. That's what I think he looks like.
There was nothing about him looking like a human though, and then transforming later.
But then, like I think that I just kind of assumed that when they say Chupacabra, they're kind of like saying, "Oh, and a werewolf stood in front of me, not in its wolf form, but there was a werewolf stood in front of me." And the only reason I knew he was a werewolf because I could smell him as a werewolf.
So you did see him as having like a human form?
Yeah, but then I think that was just like he wasn't really mentioned a lot in Charm.
Yeah.
So I didn't really like worry about it, but then I just assumed that he was in human form because they were having conversations with him, and he was the one thing that like didn't quite make sense as to why he was in the town. Everybody else was purple and stuff like that, and they're like, "What? Who is the one person that's like a little bit weird?" And they were like, "Polo."
The chupacabra.
Polo's a little bit weird. And the reason why they deduct this is that Grace suddenly thinks about how in the painting warehouse that the colours weren't all just purple.
Yeah.
And I was like, genius! I didn't even pick that up. Like, at no point when they were walking through, I was like, oh man, that must have been a really boring art gallery because everything must have just been purple. Like, I still saw it as a normal art gallery, but at no point I go, oh wait, where did the other colours come from?
And the spray paint that they played with.
Yep. And they go through loads of different, like, trials to try and find out who this person is, and they end up going back to the bakery that Grace first worked at as a disaster, because they realize that the tables out the front are blue, but they realized that the lady that she worked for, her timeline got reset and she was now a baby.
And they were all worried that something happened to her.
It was just really funny watching Hudson come back to the table after he'd been like fangirled on. But yeah, she was like, oh, did you find, I can't remember her name. Did you find Susan? And he goes, yeah, I did. And she was like, oh, how was she? He was like, dribbly. And I was like, oh no, did she have like a stroke or something? he's like, she's a baby. So they work out eventually that Polo is like the smuggler of things, but he's very adamant that the way he travels in and out is so dangerous and he is the only one that survives it. But at no point did they question him why.
Yeah, he's like, don't get eaten. Like, what?
And they're like, what? Eaten by what? Tell me. Like, what is it going to be like? He, at no point did he ask, can anybody not swim? I feel like that would have been a good question.
Right. And did you...
Because it is just, she's a fucking rock.
Did you catch? So they all...
With wings.
They all jump into this hole. Grace thinks that, I'll turn into a gargoyle. And
that'll help.
And she ends up just sinking.
Sinking like a rock. Yep.
And has to like propel herself back out of the water. But did you notice, she's like, I don't need to worry about Heather. She's pretty much in her element in anything water. I was like, where crab?
Crab. I was also really annoyed by the way that everybody clearly found swimming quite easy, but the girl who lived in San Diego
just chugging along.
Struggled a little bit. And at no point did Hudson just go like, get on my back, spider monkey. Get on my back, spider crab.
Spider.
Like they all just kind of left her behind, ended up on this island, and they were like, wait, swim. I was like, you all left her. Like, what were you expecting? Turns out there were big, like, anglerfishy kind of thingies in the water. That just Polo never kind of really
mentioned. Eventually,
like, Grace does get bitten, but she manages to fly the rest of the way. Meanwhile, Hudson is swimming towards her and hasn't noticed that she's kind of fine now.
Yeah.
And then when I was like, was there not like an overlap where Hudson went, wait a minute, she's fine, I'll swim back.
Right.
Also, why hasn't Jackson at any point just gone, oh yeah, there's no powers, are there? They have no powers currently. Because they're technically still in the Shadow Realm.
Are they? Because she turns into a gargoyle. Oh, no, she can turn into a gargoyle.
Yeah, but she can turn into a gargoyle. But when Hudson was there, he had his vampire powers, but he didn't have his gifts.
Got it.
But I was like, why didn't Jackson just lift her out of the water? But then if he didn't have any powers, then he didn't have any powers.
I don't know. Are they technically... Because this is when they're going to Athens.
Yes.
I don't know.
But yeah, they eventually get out of the cave, and then Polo's like, got it. Next time I bring someone, just tell them to swim fast. And he's like, you're a dick. dick.
So
There are three people in that group that could have landed in the water and then immediately flew.
and he could have said
didn't.
anything like, "Hey, before you hit the water, make sure that those who can fly got their wings
Fly.
out." Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he was shit. He was a shit guide. I think he was sat there just wanting a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
But do you know what made me think? Just all I had in my head was he was looking out into the water like, "Where's Grace? Where's Grace?" And all she needed to go was, "Marco."
Polo.
I'm choking.
So here's my next big beef. Okay, they get to Athens to
Well, because they have a pin sent to them by Remy out of the fucking blue.
yeah. The moment
He's like, "This is where you need to go."
right now, the moment that they get, out of the water and realize that their phones work, Grace doesn't text Lorelai.
It's like, "How long has it been?"
Yeah,
She could have gone like, "Okay, it's been a day."
right.
You're like, "Oh," but no. Like, at no point does she go like, "Actually, I remember that timelines change a little bit." She also did kind of work out, okay, so if the Shadow Queen has given me 2 days, that equates to this many days outside. She doesn't do any of that maths.
Yeah.
She just goes, "Oh yeah, 2 days, that'll be fine." She probably arrived a little bit earlier than she needed.
They also didn't say goodbye to Smokey. Like, they just left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they left Smokey at the inn and did not. I don't know. I would have prioritized saying goodbye to basically my baby.
Yeah.
So they find the curator in these, it's like runes, but then they kind of walk around and the
Grace notices, like, she recognizes the muses, doesn't she?
yeah, and the air kind of shimmers and it's almost like a hidden in plain sight thing.
Yeah, and then the curator's like, "I've been waiting for you."
The curator's like a young girl.
Oh. Yep. Invites them to brunch, which is slightly weird.
But keeps putting them off, and she's like, enjoy the area, just don't go up on my second floor is mine, have fun. And she just like disappears. So first day that they're there, Grace decides to go on a walk outside and look at all the different muses, and that's where she finds Flint outside, and she has a little chat with him. And he also, because she's already talked to Jackson, and Jackson has voiced that he's thinking about leaving Flint. This is the part where Flint starts kind of, voicing that he doesn't think that things are going to work with Jackson. And he does the hardest part about loving of Vega is that they think that they're the only ones who have to sacrifice everything. And this part to me was really, really, it was sad because he was he wasn't sad. He was like, "Come sit with Uncle Flint,"
Yeah, like he was just like, "I'm your gay best friend and I need a chat."
Yeah, because they're
Kinda
both
feel.
with Vegas,
Yeah. And I also think that there was this conversation where he's like, I love him, but there is a certain point in a relationship where you have to call it if the other one doesn't love you back in the same way, because all you're going to get is hurt.
Yeah.
And it's not even that, like, if Jackson clearly doesn't love him. It's just that he's not showing it.
And when in the bonus chapter, Flint goes back upstairs and starts packing like his stuff to go move to a different room because him and Jackson were in the same room, and Jackson like starts to be like, "Wait, don't go," but then doesn't bridge the gap and actually, and then Flint's like, "Well, you obviously don't want me here," and then he leaves because Jackson won't take the next
that last step.
Exactly.
Which is like a mirror image of, well, not mirror, a carbon copy of what happened when they were 13, 14.
Exactly. And I mean, his personality is a little standoffish in his relationship with Grace as well. It just kind of seems to be like something that he hasn't overcome yet.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so then they go for breakfast.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of expecting the curator to be there because she kind of was very adamant what time breakfast was. And they eat, and then they realize, oh, the curator's not coming. We need to go find her. Well, the one place she's going to be is on her, like, her level or her floor. So it's like, well, let's go get her. And it's like, well, what if she's doing something private in her bedchambers? Like, maybe only the girls should go up.
Yeah.
So, and the guys are like, yeah, good call. So Grace, Macy, and Eden go upstairs and just kind of open the door to this what they're expecting to be a bedroom. And they're immediately, oh no, they get like a bookcase, don't they? Mm-hmm. And they're like trying to fiddle with loads of different things to try and work out what the magical item is that flips the lever for them to turn around. And they're immediately like met with this bitchy, like, get out. I told you that you weren't supposed to come in here. I'm busy. And they're like, but we need to know where to go because you're standing in the way of Mackay being safe. And she's like, Mackay's fine. Get out. And they're like, fuck you. So then they try the bookcase again, and then they're very adamant about staying in there. And they walk in, and this is probably one of the coolest kind of descriptions of like a celestial being's power.
Yeah.
And job. Like, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, something's like modernized in the way that they're ruling and the way that they're doing their job, like their task. They walk into a room that is just full of monitors, of like TVs that are depicting things that are happening in real time around the world. And the curator is sat there, like, compiling this timeline of events, of things that are like important events that are happening around the world. And they then realize why her time is so important is because she can't step away for even a minute. And they're having this conversation with her, and she's actually replying quite easily for what the job is. I would be like, no, I shut up. I'm trying to concentrate.
Right.
They ask her like, well, like, so how do you know that Mackay is fine? And she shows them a monitor where he is fine. So she can obviously see that he is fine. She's like, if he was about to die, he would come up on the screen as an important event. And they're like, oh, okay. So they start asking questions, and she's still being really shirty about it. She's like, oh, do me a favor, go get me another notebook. Because she's filled this one she's got. And they go into another room where it is filled with journals from the thousands of years that she's been doing her job.
Oh.
And I'm like, woman, if you've been handwriting the entire time, you got to get like text to speak.
Oh, no kidding. She only gets like, what, an hour a day? One of the muses will come to life and come in and do it for her so she can...
Yeah.
But that's it. So Grace has this brilliant idea. She's like, well, what if...
We'll trade you.
Yeah, we'll give you a break. And, you know, all of us, if we all pull together, it won't be as hard. And you can go, you know, do whatever. You can go enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's just like, oh, okay.
I've never been offered this before.
And she's like, don't miss anything important, though.
And she's like, even if you write it down and it's not important, that's better than not writing down something that is important.
And only use
like,
these pens.
Yeah, and it was really funny that she was like, I'll go back over your notes. And it's like, when are you going to have fucking time?
Right?
Like, you're going to go back up the stuff that's backed up whilst things are still happening in the world. I don't understand. But yeah, so she leaves, and immediately Grace, Eden and Macy are like, fuck. Because everything is happening so fast. And you can feel the stress levels in the room getting higher and higher and higher as they realize just how taxing this job is.
Yeah.
Having to be constantly aware of things going on. But at no point did they go, okay, like what we need to do is we need to focus on certain monitors each. Or one person is the call out of like G2, like a battleship coordinates of the monitor that is displaying the most important events. Like no one's kind of strategizing about it. They're just like,
you know,
writing everything down.
I feel because Tracy always, when she writes, she connects things to her real life. You know, she always talks about how like, for example, being like in Crush, I think she wrote during quarantine. The dragon,
which was very lockdown-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Dragon Boneyard. She wrote that part when somebody passed away. It wasn't her mother, because her mother passed away when she was writing the last book. But she really tries to connect parts of the story to her life, just in an abstract way. And this feels very much like what the news in the US was like, especially like during COVID and the elections, and like you almost felt like the world was going to end and
you didn't know which bits were relevant.
Exactly. And it was it was anxiety inducing to be alive, watching the news. And
that was just for your country. That wasn't watching anything else was going on. Like there was like things like a turkey farm exploded, and people were like, why is that relevant? And things like that. And it's like, it's November. It's November, guys.
Yeah. That was when Jackson and Hudson and Flint came to try to help. And Flint was...
Well, there's this moment that Grace is like trying to text the guys to come to help, or at least relieve them for a bit, and she can't get her phone. Like every time she reaches for it, something else happens, or it falls on the floor, or she can't text out anything, and eventually they're just like, here, do you want a snack?
That's what...
at the door. And it's like, yes.
Yeah,
they knew we needed help.
That's what my life feels like so frequently. Even planning a podcast, like I felt like that.
Yeah. And I just think I can just imagine the three boys kind of turning up, looking through the door and going, well, damn. Because they would have just kind of stared for a while, but the girls are so absorbed in what they're doing that they're not going to notice three figures in the door.
Yeah.
Which shows how much the curator was aware of her surroundings. Like her job had become a little bit more of an automatic thing. But yeah, and instead of going, do you need help? They went, what we'll do is we'll go get some food first.
And
because girls be hangry.
Man, that whole part, while the girls are having like a breakdown, and then Flint trying to help, like really thinking he's contributing and pointing to the different screens. And
yeah, he's like a little like turkey
farm. Turkey farm. Like, what is important about a turkey farm? It's Thanksgiving. And then finally, Hudson has taken Heather's place, because Heather is literally having like an absolute mental breakdown. So
out of body experience.
Hudson takes her place, and Flint is trying to get Hudson to write down about like a restaurant chain that's getting shut down, and Hudson is ignoring him. He's like, yeah, I got it. And Flint's like, did you get this? It doesn't look like you got it.
What's the name of the restaurant?
Yeah. And then finally Hudson like actually explodes on Flint. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
I feel so sorry for Flint at that moment, because he goes, I'm just trying to help. And at no point is that I have been that person. In so many scenarios, yes. I have been the lemon.
Where you think you really do think that you're doing your best to help, and then you realize all at once that you're just getting in the way, and it's like, oh, I thought I was helping.
But also there's so many hands on the job that's currently been doing. You're just like, why am I here? I still want to be useful. I still want to be helpful, but I am just fucking stood in a corner watching you guys.
Yeah.
And I've been the lemon in so many times, and particularly now that I'm pregnant as well, when it comes to like heavy lifting, and like being out in the sun and things like that. Like I feel so useless, and I can so sympathize with Flint in that moment, because there's all for that kind of feeling like a lemon, still trying your best, but being told off.
Yeah.
By a peer as well. He's not his superior. He's not his boss. He's not somebody who is above him in any way, shape or form. He is the same level as him. And he turns around and levels him to the floor for just trying to help.
And even Grace was like, what, Flint, come over here and help me.
It's like, we'll cover these monitors.
Yeah. And he seems like excited to do that. Like, oh, I'm finally useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel so sorry for him, because it's like, well, he wanted to be there, and he did it with so much energy. as well, when everybody else was kind of flagging. And maybe that was also an irritant to the group, because they were like, oh my God, stop. You're so hyper. And I know I am. My energy levels are rock bottom right now. But yeah, they take turns a lot until the curator comes back. And no, they don't. They spot her on one of the monitors.
At a concert.
With Jacon. Oh. What was it? It was One Direction? Was it Harry Styles? It was something.
I don't think it was One Direction. I can't remember who it was.
I think it was a big band, and they were just like, the motherfucker. And I was like, yeah, but what would you do if you had a couple of hours of a holiday? Like, you can't just go anywhere. Yeah. You would pick like a thing that would only last a few hours. But it was just really funny that they saw her on there, because it was clearly like the monitor went, here you go. Oh, and the entire time they also said that the only reason that they would do the job, their caveat to doing the task, would be that one of the monitors would always be on Mackay no matter what, so that they would always be ready for it. Which was nice. But at the same time, they're in the real world, and so at any point, one of them could just text Lorelai, like, how's he doing?
I think seeing him would be better, though.
I don't know, because at the same time, you're watching paint dry. You're watching someone almost not die. Yeah. Especially as they're not actually as close to the week deadline as they could be. But yeah. So I think they do text Lorelai at some point, and she's like, hurry.
Yeah. This is,
and they're like, oh damn.
And this is the point when Remy comes back into the story. Which I was very relieved to finally have Remy back. When the curator comes back,
and she's like, here's how to get there, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and Remy comes to kind of help. Is it Remy who opens the next portal?
Yeah, so the only reason that Remy didn't help up until that point, until the map pin, was because it all based on decisions. So he was like, at any point it could go either way. Whereas he knew exactly where the curator was because she had decided where she was. They go to the curators, but he couldn't say that he would be there waiting for them when the curator had given them the location, because it all hinged upon the curator giving them the answer based on being convinced.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was waiting. Essentially, he was like, "There's no point me joining you if the future is not certain." So yeah, the curator gives them the location, and they then meet up with Remy, and Remy gives them a portal to where the Celestials are. And they walk through this portal, and I have never seen something derail
so fast.
So fast.
Because it was like, oh, look, a bear, a big cuddly bear, and the bear runs off. It's like, yep, okay, no biggie.
Mm-hmm. We got to find a tree, and they're in a ravine with a waterfall
and lots of trees.
And it's full of trees. They got to find one specific tree, but I've never seen Grace not be Grace for so long.
Yeah.
At no point did she question, am I even allowed to just take this stuff? Should I not question the bees? Do I not even talk to the bees? Do I talk to the bear? Like, at no point does she do anything. She's just like, yeah, we just take it. It's fine.
Yeah, and Jackson tries to grab it, right? He reaches out to grab a honeycomb and just like starts moving in slow-mo.
Yep, which is funny until it's not funny.
Yeah,
because it's kind of like a potion, like, oh, this is really funny, and then you see the bees coming towards him, and there's no way of him getting away from it.
Grace does snatch a little bit of the honey in a vial.
Yes.
And stows that in her pocket. But if you touch the honey, you start moving slow. So he's moving slow. Somebody else touched the honey and started moving slow.
Jackson, I think.
Yeah, it was Jackson and someone else, I thought.
Because he gets Flint. Flint tries to, but he then starts to transform into his dragon, but he does it so slowly that it's like watching his bones break individually.
Yeah.
And then Remy just gets attacked by the bees, like, full stop. It literally is just Grace left. Like, everybody is hurt, like, really hurt.
And then the bear comes back and starts, like, mauling them.
Like, yeah. And I was like, Grace, like, you've not thought about this at all. And do you know what the one thing that was coming through the entire time during this fight was she was supposed to go under the orders of the Bloodletter and the Witch Queen to go and get help from the Celestials to join their war.
And she just went and took
the bee. She took the bee honey. And at no point did she thought, can bees fight for us? Yes, they fucking can.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, they would murder everyone. But at no point did she think to kind of do it diplomatically or like a queen. She just went, this is mine, I'll take it.
Yeah, when
has taking honeycomb from a beehive ever been successful and peaceful?
Right. I mean,
let alone them being like godly bees.
She's
god bees.
She's very positive that like her friends are dead. Like they are laying around not moving anymore. And thankfully Remy is...
Well, she thinks that Hudson's dead. Hudson is dead.
Yeah. She thinks that, I mean, this is the end. And thankfully Remy's able to come through and use his power to basically poof them to the one place that is the most familiar to him, which is the...
Wait.
What?
So, because there's a bit where the bear is literally pummeling her, and then Grace suddenly has this spurt of intelligence, which is just suddenly... Why did it take her so long? And she's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to go get celestial dew? Since when is dew honey?
That's right.
And then had the fucking brainwave to go, maybe I should collect the actual fucking dew before we leave, or I die.
Right, the water from
yeah. So she tries to get like a vial of like the runoff from where the bear cleaned himself.
Yeah.
And I was like, but even that is a stretch to be dew. Right?
She could have been wrong this whole time.
Yeah, like, I was like, at no point were you smart about this. And, she thinks that Hudson is dead and goes kind of atomic. Angry.
Yeah.
Screaming. She angry. She's... Because she tries to find his
mating bond.
The string. Yeah, and it's really not there. And I'm like, Grace, at no point is she doing anything intelligent. She's doing everything as a knee-jerk reaction. And not one of her friends, who are all quite critical thinking people, went, this is wrong. And I do remember, like, I think it was when Hudson was climbing the tree. I think that somebody did say, can we just take it? And no one went, you're right.
Maybe this isn't a good idea.
Hold up. Yeah, hold up a minute. Let's think about this. Like... We should probably do this in the right way. It's like Celestial, and at every single point where they've spoken to somebody about the Celestials, they will say the Celestials will fuck you up.
They're just, and they just come in and they're like, oh yeah,
we'll take your honey.
Which isn't dew at all. That was my thing. I was like, honey isn't dew.
No, and they find out that the bear is a soul eater.
Yeah.
Because he's going around, like, eating things. And I'm like, why are you not fucking with the bear? Why? Like, he was scared of you when you first arrived. Now you have the honey, and he is trying to specifically kill you. Do you not think that there is something wrong here? But yeah. So then Remy just goes, I'll take you somewhere that I feel safe.
And it's literally the worst place he could have taken him. Worst
place ever. And they end up back in the Ethereum.
Yeah. This part frustrated me so bad. Like, the crone shows up and
she's like, I have you in my sets.
Give me the dew.
You're right where I want you. And she doesn't even give me the dew. She just fucking takes it. There's no way that Grace can argue with her. She's just like, thank you, I'll take that.
Why didn't Grace give the crone the honey? It would have just made her move super slow. She could have.
Also, there was a point where they're obviously still really, really injured, and the crone is so like germophobic and frustrated by them. She just heals them, not because of compassion,
Ew,
but because of
you're gross.
It's just, you're disgusting me. I'm just gonna just fix you up because ew. I'm like, well, kind of. Nobody went. Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're stuck in the prison, the room where Remy grew up in,
because there's a little doodle of a manticore, like
before he had met her. They then hear that the crone is kind of leaving and goes, well, as soon as you've landed in like the perfect place, I'm just gonna finish it. And then like kind of clicks her fingers and all of the cells unlock. And they're like, oh shit.
Well, didn't they all like start to like fall, like didn't they all like do the chamber? Like everybody.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, everybody just like fell down at once. And she's like, they're going to be in the chamber forever.
Yeah. Sleeping Beauty, straight up. But yeah, and then obviously Grace and Remy are fine because they always are. And instead of Grace going like, oh, I know what I'll do is I'll go into their dreamscapes and save every single one of them like I did with Hudson. She just went, Remy, you remember once that your father gave you the power to level this prison? Why don't you do it?
Yeah, just go ahead and do that now.
Just whilst we're still in it.
Why didn't they give, oh my God, if Grace would have given the crone the honey instead of the dew, it would have made her move super duper slow, and then they could have just crushed her while they brought the prison down.
Yep.
Oh, well.
Yep.
But Remy's able to bring the prison down, and everybody escapes, which is kind of concerning because
he loses his power. He can't find his power again.
Yeah,
once he uses everything.
He expends it all. Doesn't he say he'll get it back though?
Yeah, but I think it's like a kind of like weird like future sight thing, not a like
it'll recharge.
Yeah, it's very much like it's gonna come back. It's fine.
Yeah. So we find out through all of this that Jikan, he was in love with the bloodletter.
Still is.
And still is. And that's where the awkwardness was. It's almost like even when he was like over at like their apartment, I think that it's very much like he's in love with her, but he also respects her enough that...
And Alistair.
Yeah, like he's very much like very comfortable, like going into their house, making himself food. Like you can tell that he's very comfortable, but he is in love with her. But we also find out she's the one who created the Shadow Realm after the Shadow Queen killed her child. And it's like, whoa, well,
yeah,
that makes a lot more.
And we also find out that, like, I don't remember when we find out, but during the book, we find out that, can you remember the time wizard that he went back in time to save his daughter?
Yeah.
Turns out it was one of the twins.
Yeah.
But we don't see him again.
Yeah. I thought that was going to come back into play, but it ended up not.
So my theory is that he did do it, but the only way that he did do it was because their souls split.
Yeah.
That he was the reason why she survived, not that he saved her life.
Right.
It was like so maybe the timeline that they had before in the Shadow Realm, the twins stayed in the Shadow Realm and the stronger sister sapped everything.
Yeah.
From the weaker sister. So he went and back in time to the real world and then snapped their souls as a way of saving them, like a knee-jerk reaction, a way of saving them. because we never hear of him again. Like, she never mentions her father or anything like that. But yeah, I was like, I knew that his daughter would be important. We didn't know how important, but we also didn't know why he wasn't still important. He just kind of poofed.
Yeah. When Grace goes back to speak to the Shadow Queen, and they bring Mackay with them.
Yes.
I mean, she's livid. She's like, you are coming here. You've brought him with you, knowing that you did not do what you are supposed to do.
And she's like, we had it. It just got taken. And she's like, well, I'm just taking your word for that. Like, that means nothing to me.
Yeah, this whole part was very frustrating to me.
Yeah. This scene just kind of felt like Grace didn't really go. She went back because she had nothing else.
She wanted to try to bargain with the honey.
Yeah, but like, she at no point does she say like, we have the due. I think it's the due. Because she did. She thought it was the due.
Right. This might be it. Here, take this. Like,
this is what we collected from the Celestials. And then like the Shadow Queen probably would have been able to tell her at least what it fucking was.
Right.
But no, she didn't. She's like, oh, well, here, has this consolation prize that I don't know what it does. And she's like, why would I want that? Like, you promised me the thing that would separate my doors. And then she gets really angry. And then Grace is like, wait a minute. If I am the granddaughter of the person who created this prison, I control this prison.
Yeah, like maybe I can be the one to bring it down.
Yeah. We also find out that during their whole little like sick bed routine, that Lorelai and Mackay became kissy partner, lovers.
Yeah, they mated.
Yeah. And the mother is very pissed about that.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
Like,
no.
Oh, your daughter, who's been literally locked in a room, frail, unable to do anything, finally found like something that will give her happiness.
Well, I think that's because, like, again, there is no way of proving that you are mated and where you aren't mated. And the only person that came back was Mackay, because Lorelai couldn't come to the Shadow Realm with them.
Right.
And she had the necklace on.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like the mother kind of saw it as an insult. She's like, I gave that to my daughter. Like, why would my daughter give that to you, of all people? And he's like, well, we mated. And she's like, bull fucking shit. Like, you just took it from her. Like, I feel like the whole thing is very much like he said, she said argument, instead of people actually explaining things slowly.
Well, that's how it always goes.
But then I would also feel like that if my daughter was a teenager that is forever stuck in a tantrum and more teenagers turn up and be like, we can save them.
And then they don't?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd be like, you just, you're all the same.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Grace goes like straight up like demigod.
Yep.
Like.
But doesn't just like destroy the Shadow Realm. Because she realizes that there are a whole load of people in it that still need a home.
They don't want it destroyed.
Yeah. And she's also like probably thinking about Smokey, because at that point they still have no way of getting her to the what is the opposite of the Shadow Realm? Like the other realm? The real realm?
The real world.
The non-purple one?
Yeah.
And instead, she kind of creates this little,
like a bubble,
and a bridge and a bridge to it, which is immediately used. Immediately,
yeah.
I was like, who told them? Like, oh, by the way, sudden way of getting to the Shadow Realm. Yeah, just really silly. So yeah, they had this bridge, and eventually, like, everyone's happy. Lorelai gets reunited with her mother, because it's like I don't even remember how the sisters suddenly were okay with each other.
The mother, she basically says, like, there's no way I could have saved Mackay.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, there is no cure for the poison. And like, Grace is like, you bitch.
And then Lorelai, like, that's the point when Lorelai is back in the picture and like falls to her knees and is like she just,
please save him.
Yeah, she just found her mate, and already he's being taken from her.
Yeah. And I also remember the sister coming over, and it's just immediately like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're okay. I regret everything. I never wanted you to be hurt. So that was nice. That was a nice little reunion.
Yeah, because I thought that she didn't like her. I didn't realize that it was like she didn't have a choice.
Can you imagine 3-year-old sisters, though? Like, nobody said what age they were when it all went crazy.
Yeah.
And like, there's no such thing as an evil twin and a good twin. There's just one will always take the bad choices.
Yeah, I really did think that Mackay was going to be dead. I thought.
Oh yeah.
I was very much convinced that he is going to die, and this is just going to be the casualty of the book.
Yeah. Didn't the mother then go, "Oh, but you've had the power in you the whole time, Laura." It's like,
yeah. That
it's like the like she could suck out the poison through the mating bond or some shit.
Yeah. So
I remember this was the point where I started rolling my eyes.
I was very happy though that he didn't die.
Yeah,
but
he also got we also find out that like he decides to stay in the Shadow Realm because he's like, yeah, we're mating now, we're cool.
Doesn't he take the title of like Shadow, like King? Prince?
Yeah, Shadow Prince. Yeah. Yes, he does. Yeah,
which is cute.
Yeah, I think like it all kind of gets like neatly wrapped up in a bow in the Shadow Realm, apart from Smokey. And then they all travel across this bridge and then go to this coronation that Grace.
So
good about this entire.
I laughed so hard. So this is the one for all the one for all the podcast listeners who have been with us since the beginning. So Grace is getting all fancy. She's got her pretty dress on. They're at the witch's court, getting fancied up. Hudson comes in and he's all fancied up, and they have that moment where, they look at each other and Hudson is just speechless by how beautiful Grace is, but he's just not talking. And Grace, she thinks something's wrong, and she goes, "Do you want some water?" Which, if you've been listening since the beginning of the podcast, Amber and I have always said that's what when one of us has a problem, when one of us has something sad,
an emotional outburst,
and the other person doesn't know how to console them, we just say, "Do you want some water?" And I very much feel like this was for us because it's right at the end of the book.
Yeah. The other day I was walking around the lakes with Scott was ahead with the 2 dogs, and I was just walking back behind, like doing my ambulation. I've got to keep ambulating. And I'm walking and I see this. I don't know whether it's like because now I'm pregnant, I have like these maternal instincts have kind of kicked in a little bit, but I saw this little boy and he was huddled around like by his family, and he had his head between his knees, and my brain was like, something's wrong. So it's like something was wrong. And I walked over and I was like, "Is everything all right?" And the mother went, "No, not really. He's cracked his head open and then he threw up." And I went, "Oh no. Do you want some water?"
"Do you want some water?"
It was the only thing I had on me.
Oh no.
I was like, I felt really bad. I was like, I can't help this. Like, this poor kid. He's bleeding out of his head and he's got a pile of puke underneath him.
Oh.
And I'm like, this pregnant woman's like, "Do you want some water?" Oh. And I walked away from it and I was so embarrassed. And Scott was like, what was that? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh no. But yeah. When I was reading that though, I like stopped and like busted out laughing and had to explain to my husband. I'm like, I feel like this was for Amber and I.
It was written for us.
Yeah. So so for this coronation, to crown Grace and Hudson and, make them a part of the circle, everyone starts gathering.
There's some pomp and circumstance to this as well. Like, it's not just she walks out, it goes down the stairs, and that's where the coronation is. Like, there's a whole portal shit and everything.
Yeah, and like they're doing it on the new Katmere Academy ground, so it's like in the snow. I'm assuming,
and Macy ones up her normal portals and does a double portal.
Yeah.
She's like, what? We get a couple portal?
Yeah. They walk in and go to the stage, but then like all the other leaders start coming in, and I'm like, I've never heard these names before ever.
No.
There's a lot of people.
No.
It very much felt like Breaking Dawn when like all the other vampires started like arriving, and it's like, oh, so and so leader of this
clan,
and I'm like, what?
Who? Yeah,
Dawood is one of the. Is he a? He's not the. He's the prince for the wolves. Or one the
it is like part of like the wolf clan-y kind of person, and it's there
one of the packs. Yeah.
But yeah. So I and then all of a sudden, chaos ensues again,
and it's so
because you can't. It's like you can't have a graduation with an arrest.
No, you can't have anything nice
without having a coronation, without a wall. And yeah, the crone turns up, and I just love that the bloodletter's like, she's fucking mine.
Oh yeah, they like battle it out in the sky. And of course, Remy of course conveniently couldn't be there because he said something was going on at Calder Academy, which obviously is the gateway to sweet vengeance. I'm sure that's.
But I also think that that's because he has no powers.
Yeah, I can't get there. I need a ride.
I've got performance issues.
So he can't help. So in Grace,
he's got magical dysfunction.
Grace is in this beautiful dress, but she's like, screw it, and like she just like
rips it.
Yeah, and then she is able to get is it Macy who switches her into her magical?
Yeah, she glamours her into some fighting leathers, and she's like, hell yeah, and then it's like she's just going crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they realize that everybody who is fighting with the crone are hunters, and they have little pouches of powder, and each pouch has a different colored powder, and they show the weakness of the supernatural being that they're fighting. So, for example, the gargoyles are immune to normal magic, but the gargoyles actually do have a powder specifically for them that I can't remember what it does.
I think I thought that right when the powder hit them, like they just poofed. I thought that they just.
Oh, maybe they all poofed. But yeah, and eventually Grace and Hudson and everyone like kind of huddled together. And they're like, how do we fix this? And Grace is like, well, each of the hunters only have one pouch of specific powder. They're only going after one specific faction of supernatural. So if we just fight each other's hunters.
Yeah, based on the color of the pouches.
We'll be fine. And then they win.
And it worked.
It was an immediate strategy of like, yeah, we got this. It's fine. And the crone is super angry, and I don't really remember what happens. But like, I think doesn't she run away?
Yeah, she just gets away.
Yeah, and then the bloodletter goes, I think you have something for me. And then she's like, yes, I do, and then gives the honey to her, and she drinks it. And then that's the end of the discussion.
What did it do?
I think, right? So the crone drank the dew. Right?
Uh-huh.
Because that separated her from her sister. That meant that they were no longer soulbound. And that was the reason why she could wage war against her, right?
Uh-huh. Did the honey stick them back together?
I think the honey stuck them back together.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden the like bloodlet was like, okay, everything's balanced. Like there is a equal and opposite reaction to everything. There must be balance. There must be order. But I'm like, you're the god of chaos. What the fuck are you on about? Or is she the god of order? I don't remember anymore.
Chaos.
It's so backwards because the one person who is quite chaotic and it's not.
Yeah, bloodletter's chaos.
Oh, and then I remember the reason why Grace had to give the vial of dew to the crone was because she called in the favor.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was why she just kind of handed over. And then they were like, "Should we carry on with the coronation?"
With dead bodies laying everywhere, like
ripped levers. Everything was like, everyone was maimed and hurt. Nobody acknowledged who was dead. At no point did they go like, "Oh wait, the Vampire King is dead." Like they just like, let's just carry on. And so they coronate and crown Grace and Hudson as the Gargoyle King and Queen. And then Grace is like, "Oh, and by the way, we have an announcement for everybody. We're gonna give everyone the power.
Everybody can have the power.
We're now a democracy."
Just yeah.
And I think that she didn't mean it as like everyone gets a vote, but I think she meant, why is it only the 5 powerful factions that get to talk about this? I'm calling to the mermaids and the cyclopses and the giants and the basilisks and the chupacabras. You all get a seat on the circle. I think that's what she meant.
Yeah, I think it was like everybody will have, equality. It's not just going to be run by these factions.
And I just thought that it was really fucking funny that she literally went up, she got crowned, and she said that. But at no point was anybody able to go, "Oh, wait a minute, don't we all get a deciding vote?" You can't just come in here and just go, "This is what's happening now."
Yeah.
But I think because of the reaction of the crowd, the other circle members were, and because it was such a public announcement, the other circle members were like, "Shit, we can't go back on this. We can't take this away."
Yeah.
And she also then goes over to the bloodletter and says, I have a question for you. And the bloodletter says, "I know. My answer is yes." Have you ever had a conversation like that hasn't been so nuanced for the entire time that you've been talking to them? Like, for example, you've just got engaged and you go to your best friend's house and you go, "I've got a question to ask you." And she goes, "Well, obviously I'm going to say yes because I know what the question's going to be." That's never happened in any other scenario.
Nope. What if
like even us as readers, we were like, "What the fuck's going on?"
Yeah. What's the question? What was the question?
Will you be the Vampire King Queen?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. And the bloodletter was like, "Of course I will be." And I'm like, "Why did you never put yourself forward in the first place?" The moment where you spoke to Grace in your apartment and basically scaremongered her into thinking that her relationship was failing and falling apart because there was no solid choice for Vampire King and Queen. And at no point did you went, "If you need someone to take over the position until there's someone better, I'm more than happy to fill in the position." But at no point does she do that.
I'm young now. I'm young and spry. I'm more than happy to take over. Yeah.
And Alistair gives the crown back to Grace because we have to see that full circle.
Yeah. Flint and Jackson have their happy ending.
Yep. And we also noticed that all of the Shadow Realm people come to watch Grace's coronation as well, including the Shadow Queen
and Smokey.
And she sends the Shadow Prince, who is looking a lot better, who he's like said like, "Well, because of my sudden living in the Shadow Realm, I have developed some powers and I am now a Shadow Wheeler," or something. I don't remember what he said that he was, but he could basically give Umbra's physical form.
Yes. So
and then they bring out Smokey, who's been asleep the whole time. The whole damn time.
In his backpack.
Smokey would not sleep through a battle.
No.
Especially if she like heard or whatever Hudson being hurt, because he was in a battle. Like, he wasn't getting not hurt. He wasn't sat on the sidelines in a deck chair.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything kind of like got wrapped up in a neat little bow, but it did feel a kind of rushed ending.
The very end, from Hudson's perspective, we find out that Grace is still kind of wondering like what he's been up to, because she knows he's been up to something.
What's with all the illicit texts?
And he's like, no, everything is tickety-boo. I was like, what? Everything's tickety-boo. And she's like,
we never say that. The only reason that we would say that is if it wasn't tickety-boo and we were being sarcastic.
And she's like, everything. Usually when you say everything is tickety-boo, everything is not tickety-boo.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, what was your thoughts why he was texting the entire time? Like, what did you think that he was texting for?
I thought that... I assumed that he had a plan for who would take over the vampire court. Like he was trying to work out. But we really, I mean, was it him? Because he basically is saying that he's going to have Vega Academy at the vampire court. Like that, because he was a teacher when he was in Charm.
So he's immediately becoming competition for Remy.
Yeah, that's true.
He's like, wait, you started at school. I'm going to start at school.
Yeah. But is that what he was texting about the whole time, was just starting a school? Like, why didn't he just tell Grace that? That's such a...
I think maybe because his plans hadn't quite come to pass yet.
She thought they were going to break up, though. She was really scared.
I know. What I thought he was doing was that he was planning a proposal. Because he also knows that as much as they are mates and they're king and queen, they have a coronation and everything like that, Grace is still very human in the way she experiences the world. And like the one thing that is very human is to propose and be engaged and things like that. So I was like, oh, maybe he's like planning a proposal with everybody and like is going to make it part of like the friendship group. And because that was the one time where I was like, oh shit, my relationship is under strain because Scott is being really secretive about things, and like I don't know what's going on. And it was because he was planning to propose. And it would probably be the one thing that I was like, oh, everything makes sense now,
right?
Because the one person that you don't want to be part of that plan is Grace, because she is the main part of the plan. If you're planning to build a school, you don't involve your mate.
Yeah, like he could have just said, like, I'm building something. I'm working on something.
Yeah. Or like, I'm renovating the lighthouse that we don't go back to.
Yeah. But
yeah, I just feel like, I feel like sometimes like Hudson is just a little bit immature in the way that he handles things.
Yeah.
And isn't it like, and at no point does he understand that actually sitting next to your like life partner who is furiously texting someone and is being very shady when he's being asked who he's talking to is a recipe,
right,
for overthinking and disaster.
Yeah,
because even if you aren't, even if you're being innocent and there is no one that you're texting that is any part of your relationship, and that there is absolutely no reason for anybody to have doubts about your relationship, it still doesn't mean that the other person in the relationship isn't feeling the same.
Yeah, like don't act guilty if you're not.
Yeah, and just like say like it's not important, or it's like he doesn't have a job, and like at no point does like him running a school not make sense. He's always wanted to educate and teach, so it would have made absolute sense. But I just feel like the only reason that he wouldn't have told her was embarrassment of it failing.
Yeah, which I get.
But there's nothing to fail yet, because all he's doing is building it.
Right.
It's not like he's he's got the board examiners in and they've gone like, hasn't passed inspection. And he's like, fuck.
The zoning board is in there like, oh, I don't know. Your fence is a little too tall.
But yeah, I'm like, Hudson, I feel like sometimes your insecurities can kind of get in the way of a relationship. But Grace didn't really let him up either. I mean, she didn't question him repeatedly.
Yeah.
Which was okay. But that was very unfair of him on her to not give her something.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got some plans and I'll let you in on them when I know that they're possible. And she's going to go, okay, I'm excited. I'm going to find out what happens. Like, he's got some plans. maybe he's going to build something in the Gargoyle Court as well, because that's all been renovated and everything like that. But no.
I think that he wanted to leave a good legacy behind for the Vampire Court, because it was a place that caused him so much trauma. And if he's going to leave it, he wants to leave it in good hands and with a different purpose than what it held previously. He wanted to that way he could kind of bury it. So that's how I interpreted it. But they did, they got their happy ending. It definitely did feel like it was rushed. But I think that it ended in a good stopping place where Tracy could always expand in the future if she wanted to do like a Vega Academy series. She's already got, Calder Academy series coming with Sweet Vengeance. So there is a possibility, guys, that in the future, if we do a one-off episode, unfortunately, Amber's
and a Jackson and Flint wave as well, because they're now.
That would be fun. But there is a possibility for us to do one-off episodes in the future. If we do, those will be announced on the Crave the Book Podcast Tea Room on Facebook, in our group. Just Sweet Vengeance is coming out literally like right around Amber's due date. So unfortunately, we won't be able to, promise.
Unless it gets delayed.
Yeah, that's always
or Baby is a lot later than we were. So I might be able to read it, because I'm definitely going to read it when it comes out.
Yeah.
But it all depends on whether I'm reading it on maternity leave before Baby's happened, or I'm reading during like nursing times when I've not actually got a chance to read the whole thing in one go. I've got to do it in like bite-sized chunks. But it all depends. But I'm definitely going to be in the Crave the Book podcast team like places as well. So I'm going to be on the YouTube channels, making sure that the comments are replied to, and in the tea room. So if we have any theories about Sweet Vengeance, we're definitely going to drip them in, because Tracy always does little tiny teasers. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to when they happen. We can kind of go like, ooh, what is it going to be?
Yes.
Because we've heard nothing from Isadora.
No. Like her name was mentioned, but we didn't hear anything about what's going on with her. So
yeah. And we also find out that Macy did actually go to the Calder Academy and got kicked out.
That's
what she said right at the beginning. She went to the Calder Academy and got kicked out. So I'm like, well, what school is being built? And it's the only one left.
Maybe Macy can go to Vega Academy.
Yeah.
She should be close to graduating though. So.
Oh, we also didn't talk about the fact that Grace does eventually get the conversation with Macy, and Hudson goes into the shower for hours.
I added.
Oh, he's like, oh, girl talk, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go into the shower. It's fine. And then she's like, do you want to just call him out? He's probably a prune.
Yeah, I actually added all of the songs to our song list in order, and most of the songs were him singing in the shower. He sang Rolling Stones, Radiohead, Elton John, Coldplay, Ed Sheeran, like The Clash.
Bless him. Oh, that was one of my favorite scenes where he was like, he knew that Grace and Macy needed go talk, but he didn't want to like
interrupt,
eavesdrop.
Yeah,
but he just stayed in the shower
and sang loudly.
Because he also knew that like at some point he's going to have vampire hearing to be able to hear the conversation anyway. But he wanted Macy to know he was not listening.
Yeah.
And essentially, Macy was saying she's just so lonely, and that was crushing.
Yeah,
to read.
She's been bullied, and
and also she's not had a great relationship with her dad or her mum since they all kind of came back.
Yeah,
and they're forcing her to go to a school, and they're not talking to her.
And Finn has been very like, he's trying to be super dad now, almost like making up for the fact that he lied to her about her mom all that time. And
his school got destroyed.
Yeah.
We felt really sorry for Macy. She sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. But I think from then on, that was the turning point where Grace kind of realized that her friend kind of needed help and she wasn't really there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping that for Macy's sake, she gets to fix herself.
Yeah, she starts to come back around, but I think that I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of Macy in future books. But guys, make sure that you stay in the Crave the Book Podcast tea room. Like I said, we don't want the group to die. We don't want the discussions to die. We still want to be able to talk about the books. Just recording isn't something that's going to be possible. So maybe we'll shift the focus of the of Crave the Book to a more like book club type thing, where we can stay updated, chat.
And suggest other things to read. Like, I've just finished Fourth Wing, and it's so incredible, but I told Starla to wait until November to read it because you have left on a total cliffhanger. And yeah, I've also read some other books. So it's like everything seems to be kind of a carbon copy of the Court of Thorn and Roses, Crave, Blood and Ash. Like, everything seems to be just, it follows the same tropes, which is fine if the trope is what you're reading the book for. But sometimes you want a twist,
something new.
Yeah. Which I found with Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited by the second installment. But yeah, I'm currently reading. Like, it's a book I don't even know the name of.
Did you finish
it's like
from Blood and Ash?
The Serpent. No, because you said that the fourth and fifth one were really dull. I'm scared.
They're worth it. The new one's about to come out, so you should.
Okay. I'll read that next then. But I'm currently reading it's called The Serpent and the Stars, I think it's called. And it's about vampires. And so if anybody wants vampire fiction, and like scary vampires as well. But the name of the book, the title, isn't really important, if that makes sense. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And I'm actually really enjoying it. So it's worth it. And it's kind of like Hunger Games, but with vampires. And it's a human who's in a Hunger Games style event with vampires.
Oh, all right.
And it's really, really good.
Yeah. So keep posting in the group, guys. Keep giving book recommendations. This
because I'm gonna need some more when it comes to maternity leave, because I'm gonna go crazy. It's right over Christmas as well, where like nothing's open. The nights are like long, and there's not much I can do like actively because I'm gonna be rotund. So some book recommendations would be great.
Yeah. So, this was something that we always said in the military, like when we lived on a base, but when people would move, we always said, it's not goodbye, it's see you later. Yes. So I think that that's the best way to end this. We're not disappearing. We'll still be around. We still want to talk to you guys. There may be future episodes, but right now it just doesn't fit into our lives. But we've had so much fun, almost going on 2 years now that we have been doing these. In fact, I just pulled up our first card, and it was August 31st, 2021 was episode 1. So
literally almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. Please go do the giveaway. Go into our group, post your favorite memories, remind us of something that we don't remember. Tell us something from like early in the podcast or something that made you laugh. And we will pick a winner for one of the faction hoodies. But guys, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you so, so, so much. And until we see you, goodbye.
Bye-bye.